let's just touch on one separate area, which I guess is probably quite relevant because people have a sense that they have more time now, maybe a bit more time for self-reflection, meditation, prayer, which is a topic of Jewish prayer itself. I know Aleph Beta, your website, recently came out with a great series which delved into a segment of the morning prayer service. And I want to, completely level with you. I really have a tough time with the Jewish textual prayer service. Not because I don't. I'm largely, probably 90% just. It's down to me being guilty of not having studied it enough and understood what really, what's being said, getting a real understanding of it. But I think also just the very mechanism of having a lot of words to say, in a sense of I don't have, and feeling like I've got other things to do in my day. I can't spend too much time on this. I find that challenging. Maybe I'm also a bit of a fidgety character, and I'm not maybe being enough self-disciplined enough. And it's certainly true that when I maybe do try and discipline myself a bit more and try and understand what I'm saying, also it's harder when Hebrew isn't your first language. But I guess if you do try and invest a bit more time, then there's a bit more to get out of it. But I would say that if I look at, say, a gospel church, and I listen to some of their music and the way they're speaking in a language everyone understands and speaking simply, and the language they're speaking is more maybe spontaneous and it feels more from the heart, I can instantly just see why that moves people. And it really, it connects.
You just cut out there, so you have to repeat. You,
Where did I get up to?
no, you got up to the gospel church.
Yeah, so I said when I look at a gospel church or like gospel music, people are they're talking in a language they understand very simply. It's from the heart. The music is compelling. It's emotional. It's emotive. And for me, I sometimes I try to avoid some of the when they reference their specific deity. But some of that music I find just so incredibly uplifting, and it instantly brings me into a sense of sort of spirituality and it's nothing to do with their theology per se. It's just the music itself, maybe the setup. It feels more communal. The services, everyone's engaged more. Everyone feels more vulnerable, and I would never question the wisdom of our sages in terms of what the prayer setup that they've created, but I really struggle with it, and I just wanted to know your reflections on that, whether there is some room for innovation, and what your recommendation would be for getting the most out of the Jewish prayers, because I know there is unlimited depth and wisdom to what we're saying, but I struggle with it.
Sure. Yeah. This is something which I mentioned at the beginning of that series on prayer. So for all your listeners out there, if you want to check it out, it's there at ab.video, aleph-beta.org. I think it was titled something about the meaning of the morning prayers. But yeah, it's definitely an issue. I mean, I guess a couple pieces of advice that I would offer is the following. Even the rabbis who coined this terminology, I think what they were trying to do is create a framework, but the framework wasn't the be-all and end-all. A lot of times, one of the things that trip us up in Judaism is mistaking frameworks, skeletons, for being the be-all and end-all, and not understanding that there's flesh to be put on the bones. So, for example, the entire framework of halacha, the entire framework of mitzvot, it is a framework. It's nothing more than a skeleton. The 600, right? If you say, what does it mean to be a good person? If I keep all the commandments, am I a good person? I think the answer is flatly no. If all you do is keep the commandments, you're not a good person. The commandments are a skeleton. You are nothing but a skeleton. That's all you are, right? You're just a walking skeleton. You have to put flesh on those bones, which is that, and the Mesilas Yesharim talks about this, the great ethical work of Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, where he talks about what a chassid is. And he really says what a chassid is somebody who is able to be very sensitive to another person and to be able to kind of pick up on their desires by sort of nonverbal cues, and to be able to know enough about them, to be able to know what it is that they want, and to be able to go above and beyond the letter of the law, or above and beyond the letter of what it is that they've told you, to be able to and general ethos and their general state of mind, and to be reactive to that. That's what a chassid is with another person. That's what a chassid is with God, and that's what Shara Chassidut with him is all about. It's not about jumping into a cold mikveh, he says, and thinking, what chumrah can I put upon myself? But it's trying to understand, where are these laws taking me? What are the ethical messages which are coming across, from which I can divine where the Torah kind of wants me to go? What are the meat that I can put on the bones? So I think that's true with halacha, and I think it's true with prayer. I think the sages never designed prayer as a be-all and end-all. They designed it as a framework. And there's many statements that the rabbis make about prayer that speak to that. For example, you're allowed to pray in any language. If you can't understand the Hebrew, translate it. You're allowed and encouraged to add your own words to prayer. It's a framework because a lot of people find themselves speechless, right? The same reason why, and I'll give you another framework that we're all used to. I want to write something tender to my wife. Why is there a multi-billion-dollar industry called greeting cards, Hallmark cards, right? What's a Hallmark card? But if I buy a Hallmark card, right, and I do nothing but sign my name, no matter how beautiful card, my wife isn't going to be that impressed. I just bought her a card, right? But if I use the card as inspiration, I say, you know what, I really didn't know what to say, but this poem strikes something in me, honey. And I write a few lines underneath the poem that maybe isn't quite as poetic as the poem, but this is what it inspires in me. Then my wife is touched by that. That means something. And I use the words as a framework. And I think that's what we're supposed to do in prayer too. If you can use those words as a framework and say, okay, but now let me say something else, God, right? Here's what I'm thinking about these words right now, and I want to talk to you. That's a more meaningful prayer, right? And I think the sages are asking that from us. And even in the holiest prayers of all, in the Shemona Esrei, where you're not supposed to interrupt, you're not supposed to talk to anybody, you can say whatever you want in whatever language you want and include that in Shemona Esrei, and that's not a desecration of the prayer, that's an elevation of the prayer. So that's the first thing that I would say. And the second thing I'd say is, you can, and for inspiration, feel free to, we have some Aleph Beta videos on prayer, you can use those, but use those again to begin to inspire your own thoughts and to enliven your own thoughts with prayer. And getting back to the gospel church, it's true. One of the things I think we can learn from the Christians, from the Southern Baptists, to some extent, is the power of music. It's not just in the Southern Baptist tradition; it's in the Hasidic tradition, and it's there, and it's one of the powerful parts of Hasidus. Speaking personally, my own parents were early followers of Shlomo Carlebach, and my father was one of the guys who met Shlomo Carlebach back at the Berkeley Folk Festival, and I think it was 1967 when and Shlomo then had universal appeal. And I remember growing up in the House of Love and Prayer in San Francisco as a little kid, 4 years old, kind of listening to those songs. And whether you're a fan of Shlomo Carlebach or not, his music is often deeply touching and offers great windows into prayer. And I think one of the things that I would suggest is for folks, and one of the things you can do in COVID-19 land, when people are no longer praying in a minyan and are praying by themselves, that offers you opportunities, right? You don't have to conform as much to what everybody else is doing. You can do things a little differently. So if you want to invest another 5 minutes in prayers every morning, find yourself a quiet room and sing a piece of it, and come up with your own tune. Sing one of the tunes that are there. Many of these words are set to tunes, and allow music to be able to be part of the inspiration. Music, again, is a kind of communication, it is a kind of communication. It's a kind of communication which is nonverbal and which can reach things which are beyond verbal, right? If you think about words are great at conveying ideas, but music, laughter, and tears, the nonverbal ways that we communicate, are great at conveying emotion and stuff that lies underneath ideas. And so in ways it's just as much a form of communication. It's just deeper.
Yeah.
So a way of deepening prayer, which is words and ideas, right? Is even prayer itself, the words and ideas have an aspect of song. Ask yourself, why is it that the rabbis insisted on including poetry in prayers? Poetry is so hard to understand. It's bad enough that it's Hebrew. I have to understand the poetry also. Just say what you want to say. The answer is because the rabbis, even in the prayers themselves, are trying to get to those deeper levels of communication. Poetry is a kind of song. The beauty of poetry, I'm a fan of Emily Dickinson, but whatever your poet, right, is that it's a deeper level of communication. It gets beyond ideas to the stuff that lies underneath ideas, to the emotions, to the spirit of things, to the inner world of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the rabbis were trying to get there in prayer. So even the words have a song-like quality. If you can actually put them to music, you can deepen it further. So I think bringing some music into prayer is a fantastic idea too.
Absolutely. And I think one of my longer term ambitions is to explore how we can push the boundaries a little bit of Jewish music and explore attaching some other genres to the
By the
Jewish
way,
music
and
tradition.
along those lines, one of the things that I found inspirational yesterday, the chief rabbi, Lord Jonathan Sachs, had a beautiful live, webinar which he hosted with Sivan Rachab Meir hosted it with Rabbi Sachs and with Ishai Ribo. Ishai Ribo is an Orthodox singer out there who's had some crossover appeal into the general Israeli populace.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a fantastic thing, which was basically a conversation between Rabbi Sachs and Ishai Ribo about the meaning of songs. And Rabbi Sachs kind of provided his sort of commentary and his thoughts and ideas and kind of held forth for about 15 minutes on certain ideas. And then Yishai would sing a song and then they'd do it over again. And to me, that's a great kind of way to begin that sort of creative approach of pairing concepts with song. I think I found wonderful, and I'd
Totally.
like to see
And do
more.
you think that's something we could bring into the communal prayer service itself again once we start going back to shul? Obviously not on Shabbat, but
Sure, I think it would be great, and I think we've been taking baby steps in that direction. There's Kalbach Minyanim on Friday nights that have become very popular. But I think the notion of a Carlbach Minion 2.0, which isn't just songs, but is a song together with commentary, right? Is beautiful. Sometimes we do it now, ironically, on Tisha
is
B'av,
there any reason not
right?
to use instruments?
What's that?
Is there any reason
So
we can't use
instruments,
instruments?
is historically as a no on Shabbos,
No, no, not
but
Shabbos. I'm saying during the week.
yeah, but during the week, yeah, I think that'd be a fascinating thing. And I've seen beautiful examples of it. It's a shul in Riverdale that does Hallel now and then with instruments, with the Shliach Tzibur, which is gorgeous to watch. And absolutely, I'm all in favor of that. Together with
Yeah, me too.
a prayer service with extended commentary. It's people just you have to plan around it. It's not something to do every day, but I think it's a special kind of event that can be planned for, and I think can be wonderful.
I think it needs real thought, and I think it's something that I want to give more thought to, and I think it's really something that we do need to, as you say, have upgrade a little bit. I don't know. I don't know whether previous generations had an easier time with it than we do. I don't know, but I just feel like, there's more. We have more options now. There's more that can be done, and maybe we're in a slightly a generation with slightly shorter attention spans, and that have lots of different things are competing for their attention, and maybe we need it to take it to, raise our game a little bit.
Yep, I think that's certainly possible.
Well, Rabbi Fohrman, thank you so much. It's always fascinating to speak to you. Always help me reframe my perspectives on issues. So I'm really grateful for your time, and as always, hope we'll have another opportunity to do this. But thank you so much for taking your time out to do this with us.
Great to be here with you, and I thank you for having me on, and best regards to all of your listeners.
Thank you.
To stay up to date with JTV content, click subscribe here if you're on YouTube and hit the alarm bell. And if you're on Facebook, hit the like button, and under following, click See First. If you enjoy watching JTV content and want to help us continue to grow, please consider making a donation to us by clicking here.